My name's Shelby. I'm one of the attorneys here at McManamy Jackson Hollis.
Hi, my name's Maria Danello. I'm an attorney at McManamy Jackson Hollis.
What is your role as a closing attorney in Georgia?
As a closing attorney here in Georgia, we're here to represent the lender in most of the deals. But what we like to do is help facilitate everything so it runs smoothly and everybody gets from start to finish and has a happy process and a happy closing day.
That's right. And here in Georgia, we're an attorney state. That means that attorneys have control over the transaction from start to finish. Technically, here in Georgia, we represent the lender, but all the parties in the transaction receive the benefit of our representation. So we're here to get the deal done. But if it's a lender involved, we represent the lender. If it's a cash closing, we technically represent the buyer in the transaction.
When do you become involved in the transaction?
We become involved in the transaction pretty much from start to finish. Usually if one of the agents brings us a contract, we'll go ahead and start there. We'll read it, we'll review it, go ahead and kind of see what we anticipate having to address beforehand. And then as the contract continues to move on, we'll address those problems until we get to the closing table.
So the title work begins after we receive the contract. So we do what's called a title search. Once we've received the contract, we do that to ensure that there's no encumbrances, no liens, no judgments, anything that would affect the buyer's ownership of the property. We also do that title search to write the title or issue the title insurance policies. So we do those we issue those policies. They're a one-time fee. They protect the buyer and the lender. And if anything were to come up, like an unrecorded conveyance, any kind of probate issues, or even sometimes a property line dispute, that covers you. You don't have to pay attorney's fees.
As far as document preparation, I would say it really does start when we get that initial contract. If we get in there and we see, for example, the seller is going to be in a state, there are certain affidavits, things we might have to get ready before the closing so that we have the proper title vested, everything like that. And then we work really hard to make sure that everything's taken care of. So if something comes up at the table, we go ahead and try and get that addressed. But we really like everything to go as smoothly as possible up until the very end.
Who do you represent in a Georgia closing?
So in a Georgia closing, we, the closing attorney or the settlement agent, as we're sometimes referred to, represent the lender primarily. If it's a cash deal, then we'll represent the buyer. But again, all the parties receive the benefit of our representation. Our job is to get the deal across the finish line.
I think that people commonly think that we represent each and every party in the transaction. And we really do try to be a neutral facilitator and help everybody out. That is our goal, is ultimately to get you to the closing table and get everything finished, but ultimately we do represent the lender.
What are you responsible for on closing day?
On a closing day, we first want to come in and greet everybody and make sure that they know who we are and feel comfortable in the room. Then after that, we'll start getting into the package. Usually the package is going to have some documents from the lender and then some of our law firm's documents. Our goal in the process is to explain to each party what they're signing so they fully understand what they're getting into, and then provide any information they may need with questions after that, as well as someone to contact after the closing if anything goes wrong.
Just to add to that, because we are an attorney state here in Georgia, the attorney has control over the whole transaction from start to finish. So that does mean that we sometimes will prepare we prepare some closing documents, but of course we'll even prepare the lender documents if that's required of us. We of course are the main communication between all the parties in terms of closing. We do that title search, like you mentioned. We certify title at the end of the title search. We issue the title insurance policies as well. And then really the final step in all of that is closing day. So that's the day where we have the closing ceremony. All the parties are here. We greet them and they sign the closing documents.
On closing day, our buyers are going to go ahead and wire us their funds so that we're ready to get that dispersed to the seller afterwards. So basically, usually we prefer to have the funds wired before the closing, and then basically we'll get everything signed and then go ahead and release that to the seller afterwards. It is also super, super, super important that you always call to verify your wire instructions.
How are you different from a title company?
Here in Georgia, we are the title company, essentially. So we're the settlement agent. We handle all the same things as a title company handles. But here in Georgia, because we are an attorney state, we just take extra care in doing those things. So technically really in the state of Georgia for these types of transactions, we see less litigation, we see less issues arise because we have attorneys that are handling those things as opposed to just a random employee at a title company.
Just to add on to that, I would say the title company is really going to be in Georgia responsible for issuing the insurance policy that protects you in case there's something unforeseen that goes wrong or is missed or could not be found in the title search.
What are the most important documents buyers sign?
The most important documents you're going to sign as the buyer are going to be, if it's a traditional loan, you're going to have your CD, which is your closing disclosure. That's going to go over your loan amount, your interest rate, your monthly payment, all that. Next, we're going to have the Alta statement or the settlement statement. That's going to go over the entire transaction. The Alta and the CD really go over the same information, but it's just going to be formatted a little bit differently. Also, for a buyer, it's really important you sign your note. Your note is simply your promise to pay. Beyond that, you're going to sign a security deed. A security deed is what gets recorded in the state of Georgia to evidence the property serving as collateral for the loan. i.e., the note says, hey, Mr. Lender, I promise to pay you, or security deed says, hey, Mr. Lender, if I don't pay you, you can take the property back. So those are going to be, I would say, probably the primary and most important documents you need to get signed as your buyer.
And just to dovetail off of that, Georgia is a non-judicial foreclosure state. So that means that there's no lawsuits that have to be filed against a buyer if they default on their loan. Notice just gets published 4 weeks in a row, and then the lender can move forward with foreclosure. So that's why that security deed is incredibly important.
What documents do sellers sign?
So I think really number one for the seller is, of course, that settlement statement. We get CDs and settlement statements signed by both parties. That really shows how the funds are being dispersed, and that's number one. Number two for the seller would be the limited warranty deed, and that's typically the deed that's signed for most of the transactions that we handle. That's what transfers the interest from the seller to the new buyers.
I would also say, in addition to that, your payoff authorization is important. We want to make sure that we are paying off your loan to the correct lender. There can be a lot of fraud in this business, so we want to make sure that everything is done meticulously and carefully. Another one is at the very end, we have one where we usually have you confirm your wire instructions, and that's important because that's what gets you paid.
Do you explain documents before clients sign?
Yes. When we do our closings, we take a lot of pride in trying to explain every single document. It's really important to all of us, especially in Georgia as an attorney state, that you know what you're getting into and that you have any questions you may have answered before you sign. I'd so much rather you go ahead and ask me at the table than call back later and be upset or confused and not know what's going on.
What is a title search and what are you looking for?
The title search is really important because we want to confirm the property that's being sold, make sure it's the right thing, all that. And then two, we want to make sure that our chain of title is good. Basically make sure that who is selling the property or who's purporting to sell the property is the correct person, that if it's held in an estate, in a trust, anything like that, that's handled beforehand. Basically the title search is there to make sure that we can convey good title and to avoid any hiccups at the outset.
That's right. And we also do that title search to ensure that if there are any issues, we want to cure those issues before we transfer the property to the new purchaser.